If you didn't get an annual report, they're out there by the mailboxes, so you might want to pick one up if you don't already have one copy. There's also ballots out there. You'll pick up the ballots. They're out there also. So if you don't have one, make sure you have one of those. As soon as Pastor's ready, we'll start out with an opening prayer, so we'll wait for Pastor.
Okay, if we can begin by bowing our heads in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this church building, and most especially we thank you for this church community. We ask for your guidance. We know and you know that part of that guidance is the messy business of taking care of business. And for that we seek your help, your guidance, your love, and especially your love for one another, or our love for one another that comes from you. Lead us and direct us in your will, and we ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. The agenda is inside the cover of the annual report. I would like to add one addition to the agenda that came to our attention after the agenda was printed, and we'll put it down under new business, and that addition will be a $5,000 grant that is coming from the Depot Outlet. If you hadn't heard already, the Depot Outlet had a very good year this past year, and at their annual meeting, they voted to give every church in Wenatchee County a $5,000 grant for whatever use they saw fit for that. So we'll put that on the agenda under new business, so you know that's coming up. Any other additions to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as changed? Lana, is there a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Okay, agenda's approved. Annual meeting and special meeting minutes are on page 3 and 4. rather than reading through those, if you want to just take a few minutes to read through those, I'll mention a few things. The special meeting was the meeting we had in the fall for the parking lot. So we'll approve those minutes as well as the meeting last January. If nothing else, it's a good review of the meeting last January as we move into this meeting. And the parking lot is on the agenda today as old business, so we will discuss that further too today. And also to inform you, we are live streaming the annual meeting right now, just in case somebody can't see it. They can't participate in it because we did not vote to allow that to happen, but they can watch it or see it later.
Is there nothing on here about youth meeting or anything on that order for you?
Which,
On the agenda?
no, that's not on the agenda. I guess that's part of a normal operation. It's in the budget, so we can discuss as part of the budget. But as far as anything else with the youth, no.
Were you talking about the Columbus gathering?
Pardon?
Were you talking about the meeting coming up in the summer?
No, just the overall. Yes. Okay, so in the agenda, we do have, or in the budget, we do have money for a youth director. And possibly, maybe that'd be appropriate if you want to discuss at that point. And youth activities going. There is a small group working with the youth right now, yes. But nothing official going on there. So, and that may be something to bring to the attention of the new council if they want to organize something more sound there. Any additions or corrections to the minutes, either one of them? Okay, if there's no changes to them, we can say they stand approved as read and as presented. I don't have any other announcements, unless somebody else has an announcement to make to the annual meeting. Approve reports as submitted by page numbers. How we will proceed through that, as we have in the past, is we will just kind of go through each one individually and look at it. We're not going to read them as such. But whoever prepared the report, if they want to say something when we get to that report, feel free to say something. When we're done with all of them, if there are no changes or additions, we'll just approve them all at once with one motion. Otherwise, we can handle them individually if there needs to be that. The first report is the council president's report. On pages 5 and 6, I apologize for the length. As I started writing my report, this is my 3rd year on council, and it's been an interesting 3 years. So the report this year encompasses all 3 years. And as I wrote it, I decided to make sure we encompass all 3 years, as it's been very interesting, something to go through. So, any questions on anything on the president's report? Okay. Pastor's report. Pastor Darrell, Pastor D, as you have it here. Anything you want to say in particular about your report?
Just like to read the report, we will read it. But look around us. I see way too much wood. We're all evangelists. Each and every one of us, each and every day. Let's cover up the wood that sends us. Please. Let's work at it. Let's invite neighbors, friends, relatives, young church, anybody. We are welcome. And we love to see this place full. If there's something I, as a pastor, am doing, not doing, that is
Okay. Pastor's Acts page is on page 8. Those are the official acts that were performed this past year by the pastor of Kelmer and Springfield, and it lists both Kelmer and Springfield in all the acts. We are two congregations working together, so that's appropriate as far as I'm concerned. Again, if there's a questions or if we're missing anything in any of these reports, be sure to let us know. We try to catch everything possible that's happened during the year. Congregational membership report is there on the next page. Again, similar pastoral act, just the, as we look at our annual report, basically it's a summary of the year. And we keep these on record, and many of you probably keep them on file at home also, so if you ever need to refer back to something. Next page is Springfield. That one we do not need to approve. Iwalu is on page 11. Lana, anything else you want to say about Iwalu? Good. So new director there at Iwalu, new young person coming in, so maybe we'll see some even better things to come out of already good camp. Okay. Good. Script committee, Sheila or Judy, anything you want to say about the script committee? Just a background for those who aren't aware what the script committee is, make sure that's clarified, is the Quick Star cards are sold every week. You can talk to Judy or Sheila. Typically Judy's got very handy. You can catch her in the office usually before service. And how much of that goes into a fund? Okay, so automatically sell them for 100% value. So 5%. Okay, so that's a way that, and so far the funds have gone to basically a capital project where there was a mortgage and now the parking lot, is my understanding correct? Okay. Church Technology Committee, just tried to summarize some of the things that we've done this last year in the technology area. I put that together. We switched over internet, was a little interesting. It's been some transition issues on our internet, but it has enabled us to have a little more power and a little more speed here. I think we're hopefully getting the bugs worked out of it now. As we work with it, also upgraded some of the monitors of Pastor. For some reason, at 80 years old, his glasses aren't working as they will when they were 40. So we now have a larger monitor in his office, and he also added a monitor to his office at home too that he's working with. So, and credit the Adam family. I don't know what this church would do without them some days. The Adam family stepped forward, and they are helping with the presentation software now. It works great when the whole family steps forward. They actually, the three of them they've run 3 different things back there, 2 iPads and a computer, and they're really good at it. And they typically the first Sunday of every month, or when Luther or I are not able to watch it. So it's kind of nice that I have a relief on the first Sunday, and I can sit in the congregation on the first Sunday of the month now. So I like that. So, anybody else interested, we're glad to have you part of it. Takes a little bit to pick it up, but once you picked it up, it's not so hard. It all works as long as it's working. Some days it doesn't, but usually we can troubleshoot that quick. Kelmer Lutheran Cemetery report. Luther Anderson submitted that. Anybody else have anything they want to add about? Yes.
I have a question on the top entry there, the Elway Bay.
Mm-hmm.
On December 31st of 21, we had $8,600. The next day, $4,000. Where's that? Where was that?
Can anybody answer that question? I do not know.
And then you drop down cash on the end, same thing. $4,000 is there for the end of that. Just fly out the window or what?
I don't think we have anybody from the cemetery committee here. Okay, we can find that out and get a clarification on that. Okay. No, I mean, it's a good question. I'm glad you saw it. I didn't even see it till you just mentioned it right now. What I might guess that is, and I'm taking a guess, is that right-hand column should be 22 instead of 21. That's my guess. And it may just be a typing error. So the fund would have increased by that amount. But I don't know for sure. So we'll check into that. We'll make sure that gets either in the bulletin or the newsletter with the correction out there. So, any other questions on that cemetery report? Okay. Worship and Music Committee. Worship and Music Committee meets on Zoom online once a month. We're always encouraging more input in there. There's quite a list of people that the email invite goes out to, and not everybody makes it every Sunday. Sometimes it's Tuesday evenings. I think we had one meeting with 2 people who had made it. They will go through the list of the worship plans for the month, pick out the songs for the month, and outline things, and then they turn that over to Pastor D and our church secretary to put the plan together for each week. So usually we have about 5 or 6 people involved. So depending on if you're interested in being part of that, feel free to let us know, and we'll include you on the list in the Zoom link. You can do it in your pajamas if you want, but we hadn't had anybody doing it in pajamas. So, that's usually on Tuesday evenings. Faith formation. Lonnie, you want to say something about faith formation? It's been a little bit different this year. So faith formation is Wednesday nights now instead of Sunday school. We have what we call faith formation. Go ahead. They're a couple of our teachers, several of our teachers for that matter. We have a lot of people helping out Wednesday night. She helps out. We have people out with the pancakes and cleaning up. It's nice. Pastor D does all the pancakes. If you've not been in Wednesday night, sometime come in at 6 o'clock. Have a pancake with us. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to, but have a pancake with us. And then he has several people that he goes to confirmation, and at the end of the night, it's all cleaned up and put away downstairs. He can just leave a mess if he wants, and it's always taken care of. So it's really great the way things are going, and people are stepping up and helping with it. And then confirmation goes on at the same time. It used to we only had confirmation on Wednesday night, but now we have preschool through confirmation. So, and the other thing that's really making it successful, I think, is the joint venture with Springfield, as mentioned in the report. Past, each church had their own Sunday school, but now when we get 2 groups together, we got a larger group of people for teachers and a larger group of students, and that's been kind of a nice thing too there with that. That's faith formation report. Cameron Lutheran Church Audit Committee report is on page 14. And Karen Anderson, I don't think is here today. If there's any questions, again, we can check on that. Okay. Council committee terms, expiration dates, that's most more information for everybody. So there is a correction on that. The council for January 22, Josh Ott, not Jim Stentheth, is going on. Jim Stentheth is actually coming on this year as a council member. Josh Ott's going off. I told them they could switch roles and Josh could come on and Jim could go off, but they said, no, we'll go this way. So, so one correction there. Again, sorry for the typographical error there. I should have proofread this a little closer before it went out. Annual report, MAC committee. Anybody from the MAC committee want anything? Add any comments today? If we look at this past year. And there's also a treasurer's report there. It looks like 2021. I'm assuming that's 21. Ending down. Oh yeah. Okay, that would work. Yeah. Yeah, that one dates work right. Welcome report page. Page 16. as well as our financial report on page 17. Any comments from the Wilco group or questions of their information? Okay. Endowment Committee annual report is listed there. That information's already been sent out to you as far as in the newsletter and all that. Again, as we put together our annual report, it's a summary of the year, so we want to make sure all of our information for congregation is in there. Again, at the meeting here, you're basically approving the information. If you have a question about it, this is the time to bring it up. Okay, then the treasurer's report. Deidre was unable to make it today. She's not feeling well. She texted me. I'm pretty familiar with that report. If you have questions on the treasurer's report as far as beginning balance, ending balance, savings, mission, special funds report is the first one. That's front and back. Looks like it's the same. Actually, it looks like we're missing something. Yeah, the only thing on mine is a special funds report. The actual disbursements are not on here. Those will be shown on the budget. So there was another report which showed all the disbursements. That will also show on the budget. So that would be the same information. Any questions on the special funds, at least at this point? Budget will be dealt with separately. Okay. With that, that's all the reports, kind of the boring part of the meeting, and there usually isn't much controversy except for one report, obviously, the cemetery committee. So I would entertain a motion to approve all the reports with the exception of the cemetery committee report, since there is a question on that one of the information in there. Do we have a motion to approve everything but the cemetery committee report? Lana moved it. Second? Okay. Any discussions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will table the cemetery committee report until we have more information on that, since there's a question on that, we want to get that clarified today. So either that'll be voted on at the next annual meeting or at some other time. And there's an opportunity to vote on that. The information is there, but we won't approve it as it's written until that information is clarified. Okay. Okay. If we find out before the end of the meeting, we'll clarify it, and then if we're satisfied with the answer, we can approve it then. Thank you. All right, that leads to old business on your agenda. Parking lot. The update on parking lot is essentially nothing's been happening. We had hoped that if the time had allowed, that they could get some of the grading work done in the fall. But that didn't happen. That's often with construction. Some things are unpredictable there. Josh, do you have any other comments to add? Okay. So that's our current parking lot, as those of you who were involved in that. And that meeting we had, you're aware of that nothing's changed on the details there. Luther did text back. I will check. I think we cashed in a CD a year ago. Also, disbursements from investments were down last year. Still need to, that doesn't answer the total question on it yet, no. So. The other question on the parking lot then is moving forward. We've issued essentially an agreement with our contractor. They will get in there this summer and do the north parking lot. We have over $50,000 raised. We have a grant that we have applied for from the Winter County Community Development Program. Have not heard back on that yet. They had to be in by January 10th, but I don't know what the process is there as far as approving on that. The next question is, we have 2 other parking lots. We have not discussed what to do that, so I wanted to bring that up at annual meeting. We do not have to decide anything with those, but if there's some discussion or comments of what you want to do. One of the concerns that's been raised is the back entrance by the kitchen is very difficult for some people to navigate because it's settled back there, the gravel has, and there are some other issues back there. They're putting a new door opener back there, but that's nothing with the parking area. Any comments? Any questions? Any suggestions of where we want to go with the parking lot from here on out? Go ahead.
I think if we just take one parking lot at a time, get one done and paid for before we begin, and or literally paid for
Okay.
before we get on to the next one, rather than jumping into the whole thing and now we're into
Okay. Yes.
I feel like Cheryl, I also feel like we should see how it goes with the first one. We're going in pretty good on this one, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And we should see how this goes. We get voluntary, we not get voluntary. Knowing those things, and this thing is just not next.
Okay. Yes. Well, one option we do have is they are doing a lot of, what do I want to say, grade work over there, moving a lot of dirt, moving a lot of gravel. And I think Josh had mentioned they might have extra. So maybe one of the suggestions is, while they're doing that parking lot, not cement back there, but maybe bring the gravel up to grade with the sidewalk, whatever additional cost that is to put it there, and maybe even haul in a couple loads and not worry about concrete or asphalt or anything, but just bring it up to grade. The problem is that you bring that up to grade, it becomes steeper. Okay, that's our other issues there. It's much higher than the surrounding area, so it's not just a matter of bringing in a few inches of gravel. And you got to dry it out. So yeah, it's not a simple thing, but it is. Yes.
That's going to be an expensive deal.
Yeah. So the only cost that's been yeah.
It's still going to be an expensive deal to grade that towards you want and have all stuff.
Yeah. So the only cost that's been approved is that parking lot. So if we did anything back there, that would have to be approved here. Yeah.
But just remember, we gotta keep that back area and backward in mind, because I don't know if any of the rest of you knows, but it is getting steeper back there for some of us people to step up that step. It's getting higher and higher every year. So don't let it go too long.
Well, we're getting older and older too. That may be a difference.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. It's just that it's getting smaller.
It's settling, yes. It is settling. Yes.
You can throw out the leaves.
If I ever grow up, I'll be fine.
Maybe we can just put a step ladder back there. Huh?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, since the only thing that has been approved is the north parking lot, if we would do anything, it would need to be approved at a meeting, congregational meeting. That could be done today, or it could be called this summer once we know what's going on with the north parking lot.
I think it would make better sense to wait and see how this one goes before we even vote on
Okay.
the next one.
I mean, that's why it's on the
And
business.
then in the summertime, you tell us better.
That's why it's on the meeting here. It's old business. I want to make sure everybody, we don't want to do anything that everybody hasn't had a chance to have input into. Any other thoughts? There's no motion here, so we can proceed if there are no other thoughts. Okay, directory. Our directory that pastor has been trying to figure out who's who in when he first came here is I think some of the kids are in elementary school that are now graduating from college. They don't look exactly the same, and some of us, the rest of us, do not look exactly the same either. There's been mention of starting a new directory. We've done directories in a couple different ways. The last color one is done professionally. Don't have any cost or haven't looked into anything there, but essentially what they do for those directories is a professional firm comes in, they set up cameras, they take professional photographs, and in exchange they give us a free directory, but what they do then is they try to sell you a family photograph, which the free directory is nice. The one comment why some people are opposed to things like that is you are better off financially going to a local photographer and get a family photograph than what they would charge through their directory. The other discussion on that says, well, nobody ever does that, and here's an opportunity for somebody to get their family photograph updated, and they wouldn't do it otherwise. So the other thing we have done, and they have been trying to do, is put together our own directory by you submitting pictures of yourself or your family. Who's been working on that? Lana Holler and Julie, I think, have been trying that. Lana emailed me. I think she got 6 photographs over the last 3 years. She started it just before COVID, is when they started their emphasis, and then about 6 people submitted photographs. So far that method has not been successful. Soften comments on a church directory. Pastor.
There is a company that specializes in just kind of guiding us to print our own directory. It's a living, breathing, dynamic directory. It can change at a moment's notice. And everybody has access to it electronically. And then because we've got printers at home, you can print out the directory once a month. So 6 months, whatever you want. But it's a very reasonable. Really like to see some kind of a directory that contains costs, not only for the church but for individuals as well. Do something that gets everybody participating. Even if we set up camera out here, we got some amateur photographers that are good, and we set up camera, snap people's pictures as they come through, or take them from whatever. I'd like to see this move. Very helpful. Made it practical to new members coming in. We've got some new members and they know about the titles.
So the big thing is we need, and I know Lana Howard's been trying, but we need somebody who's willing to take the lead. First off, obviously be here in the building to take pictures if anybody doesn't want to submit one. And secondly, be on the phone, okay? Calling people up, hey, we need your picture. You can email me or can you stop in?
A small task.
No, it's not. It's not a simple thing. We all know, I mean, we got 200 members, okay? And some of them are no longer in the area possibly, but getting them to get their picture to you is not an easy thing. Just putting it in the newsletter, putting it in a bulletin doesn't do it. Any thoughts or comments?
I think there's some calling, not just have them take a family portrait and send it to Lana. They can text it to her and she can have pictures. Can she print them out then or text it to her?
So you're talking an online directory is what you're familiar with, Pastor?
Online, and then anybody who wants to print it, just print it at home.
They can print it at home. Kind of like our newsletter. You get it out as a PDF if you want it, or you can go into this directory and. Yeah. And they did make, we do have an up-to-date list of phone numbers that was produced here about 2 years ago of everybody's name and phone number. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then touch. So, all right, great. And again, if there's no cost with it, we don't need to worry about that at this point, unless it can come under a budget item somewhere. Okay, new business, 2 items, discussion, and at least one of them will need an action. One to discuss is an electronic sign. I'll let Pastor visit about that a little bit. The second one is the $5,000 that came from the depot outlet. We need to have a decision of how we want that money spent. Obviously, there's several things we can do with it. But we'll start with the electronic sign. You want to mention a little bit about that, Pastor?
We have our sign out there in front, and I think it's probably one of the least read things in the city of Calmer. But I would like to have, at some point, a sign that is electronic that can be changed either from in the building here or all the new ones. It's even simpler. You just pull out your cell phone, and I can be in Arizona and change the sign out here. And it would be a thing that keeps us updated on, like, for example, today's switching times, because we did have people at Springfield that showed up at 10:30 for service. And maybe we had some of the same situation here, I'm not sure, but things going on in the community, messages to our church community, little sayings like I put out there on this one, for those of you who haven't seen it, said it was for Advent, it said Jesus is coming, look busy. Just things like that I can put up. The next one I'm going to put up is we are open between Christmas and Easter. But the electronic signs, we can either get a rather inexpensive one to fit into the space that we have, or kind of close to it, or we can build another structure out there that can be read from both directions as people coming down the street. There's a lot of traffic on this road out here. I sit in the morning and watch it go by. And so if we can talk to our community from this church, I think that would be something very helpful. We've not done a lot of investigating at this point to see how much they cost, but I think we're probably looking at somewhere in the, I don't know, $8,000 to $15,000 range for a really high-class sign. That's a lot of money. So we can do something in between, something in the low end. We can stay where we're at, or we can at least investigate it, come back to the congregation with a proposal, if there's interest. So that's what I'm asking. How many of you think, just straw poll, how many of you think that would be a worthwhile thing to look at? Oh, praise God. Okay. Shut up.
Anytime you talk, everybody agrees. So now leave the room. We'll take another vote. No, I'm kidding. I did do some just internet searching for a few things. We could get a small, basically it's an outdoor TV monitor that could be placed in there for under $2,000 in that current place. The problem with that in there, where if you're going to do it, if you want to do it right, you really need something that can be seen as you're driving past versus coming straight at the church. Because most of us, we drive in front of the church and we don't see the sign. If you come straight down the street, you can see it. And obviously, if it's electronic, you're going to pay more attention to it than if it's the static one that you think is the same sign that hasn't been changed for 2 years. Maybe I think at one time it didn't get changed for 4 years. Same old, same old. So, any comments, questions, or action you want to take on this? Okay. Yes. That would be another issue. Are we imposing on the street side? We may not be able to go any closer to the street with the sign. That is, yep, good point. And then we'd have to check with somebody. Yeah, ideally, yeah, if you wanted, ideally, yeah, if you could put electronic signs down by one of the streets, that'd be great, but the electricity would be the issue. You would have to have your own electrical meter, or maybe they make solar ones, I don't know. And then obviously you have a permission wherever, whoever land you were on, which there may be a possibility, particularly down here, to get permission, because I know there's some private outrage down there. But, unless we buy the old train station and as an outreach center for our youth or something. There you go. Yeah, hook into the railroad. They'll pay for electricity. So yeah, lots of possibilities there. If we have a motion, we can. Otherwise, I think the discussion has been, let's look into this further. If it's a major expense like $15,000, yeah, that would have to come back to a congregational meeting. So.
I'd rather come back to the congregation than
Mm-hmm. So, but at least we know the interest that everybody's. And I don't know if you've been to other churches, but yeah, there are other churches as you drive through town, you see them, and they catch your eye, even in the middle of the day. So, all right. Next discussion is, as I mentioned, the depot grant. Depot outlet will be sending us a check for $5,000. We have several options we can do with that. Well, one, it can just go into the general budget. And 2 years ago, they sent us $3,000 during COVID, every church, and it was a good thing during COVID because obviously, financially, churches all were hurting a little bit that time. And that $3,000 just went into our general budget and was just absorbed as a donation. We can do that again with this $5,000. Currently, our operating expenses are in line. We did finish in the black this year. Not a lot of extra money. We basically rebuilt our savings that we had eaten away at in previous years. Or we could designate it to the parking lot or designate it to something else. I would like to have a motion in action on that this congregation decides. Comments, suggestions? Yes. Then let's go with Lynn.
Is the $5,000 we give now has nothing to do with the $2,000 or you're going to increase that you can ask for annually or something specific that is needed from church.
Yeah. There's no strings attached to it, right? There's no strings attached. And they did give us, by the way, $3,000 last fall for our parking lot already. So this is an additional $5,000.
But they're all churches, all religious organizations that are affiliated in Wenatchee County, 35 of them are each getting $5,000. No strings attached.
Wow. Lynn, you got something to say? So yeah, for what Lynn suggested, again, for people listening, Lynn has suggested, it's not a motion, but he has suggested, what if we take $2,500, put it toward the parking lot, take another $2,500, set it into an account for a sign. Obviously, we've not moved it to do a sign. It would sit in that account until something came of it. That's a suggestion. It's a suggestion, no motion yet. Yes. Okay, another suggestion is put it all into a fund to for a new sign once we decide what we're going to do with that.
Keep in mind that this next year, we will be eligible to apply for another $2,500 grant from the people about some other project we are having in this money. And this will be an annual ongoing.
So in other words, I mean, just for example, we could actually apply for another $2,000 for the sign this coming year. You're allowed once a year to apply for a grant, and so far.
They cannot accept to do monies to you for is your routine bills and things that you should be able to do. But things that come up, like the parking lots, the sign.
The technology in this room was paid for, much of it by the depot out. So they've been a very good organization for us. We've benefited many times, yes.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
We put that $5,000 in special fund and use it for an electronic sign. If it doesn't all get used, the rest can go to the parking lot.
Okay, a motion has been made that the $5,000 be set aside in a special fund for a sign, and if the sign uses less than that amount of money, the remaining balance would be going into the parking lot. Is there a second? It's been seconded. So, any discussion on that? Pastor?
Some of you may remember last week when I gave the example of Sister Teresa in Australia, and the young monk wanted to accompany her to New Guinea, and she squinted at him and said, "Do you have enough money to pay for a ticket to New Guinea?" And he said, "Yes, sister, I do." And she said, "Well, they're going to go spend it on the poor, because you'll learn more from them than you'll learn from me." So we've been graced with this gift from the depot, and I've enjoyed the conversation here, but I think that as a policy, maybe not a policy, but just a thought, that each time we get a gift like this, we should consider giving 10% of that gift to some way, some kind of assistance to those people who are less fortunate than we are in this community. So I should have gotten this in before there was a motion on the floor, but it's just my feeling, and not that that needs to be done. I'm just kind of offering that as a thought, that when we get just an outright gift like that, that is so gracious and wonderful and something that we didn't expect, let's be gracious to those among us who have needs.
Pastor Stan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of requests from people for a donation
No.
for indigent care?
No. We have our wonderful food shelf out here, which things come and go in there, and I think that's wonderful. There are needs within the community, and I can go seek them out and find them quite easily. We have needs probably even with some of our own parishioners that struggle. I don't get a lot of requests. We do have a benevolence fund. We've got script cards in the drawer in there, and I have given some to those who come and ask. So it's not like they're lining up at our door, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, we do have a benevolence fund that the endowment committee put $1,000 into this year. So that fund is, and that typically is for somebody that comes to the church who is in need of assistance. I mean, remember the last time we had it, somebody needed new tires. Basically, tires were flat on their car and they couldn't afford to drive it and put new tires on it, and we helped them get new tires. So that was the most recent request I remember coming to the church. So that is there for people who actually come and request funds. Thoughts on that suggestion? We can't amend the motion yet. Any other discussion? Yep. If not, all those in favor of the motion that we have $5,000 that be designated for the sign and any remaining balance be put into the parking lot, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. That takes care of that item. Election, you should have a copy of the ballot. With the exception of one position, which actually it's nice to have the exception usually this year. We do have 3 people running for the depot. The depot outlet actually asked for 2. We have 2 representatives, so we do have 3 people interested in being represented on the depot outlet, and that's wonderful to have that. We can also have any write-ins for any of those areas that are listed on that ballot. Anybody wish to volunteer or write their name in on any of the things that are listed on the ballot?
have to hold up ballot. Yeah, that's valid.
Sharon's in charge of the election, so you want to, anybody else not get a ballot. Each individual gets a ballot. So your husband and wife do not have to vote the same. And you do not have to show your spouse how you voted either. Everybody got any additional write-ins for the ballot? Or nominations for any position on that ballot? Any idea? Conference assembly, when that is? We have a Senate assembly, we have a conference assembly. I was thinking it already happened for some reason, but I'm not sure why I think that. I thought I saw something else. We're coming up shortly. It may have been, this last week or so. Which one, again, next year would be before the annual meeting. I seem to remember seeing something on it. And again, I wasn't going to be available either, so I just kind of took it off. So, sorry about that. We should have known that. But we'll make sure we get hold of Sheila next year when we know what the date is, or if it's coming up. So, yeah, and some of those things, obviously, we have not filled position. We will try and obviously draft people at the time if we don't have somebody for those who need them. Okay, vote. The one you need to vote on for sure is the depot outlet. You vote for 2 out of the 3. And then Lana and Sharon will take the ballots and count and give us the results. And Bridget, picking up also. And while we're talking about the budget, they'll take care of that. So the next thing on the agenda will be the budget on page 22 and 23. I did look that over. I apologize for not proofing the rest of it. So as they're collecting those in, if you go to page 22, you will see 3 columns, actually 4 columns. The first column is what we approved last year for our budget, okay, as we went down through it. The middle column is the actual expenses in that area. And that, like I said, we didn't have the other treasurer's report, but that would be very similar to what was been on the treasurer's report. And then 2022, the third column is what is being proposed by the council for this coming year. Now, the council only makes the proposal for the budget. They don't approve it. It is this meeting that approves those items. And then there are some notes in the last column of how we calculated some of those. And the way I'll proceed with this, because I want to make sure everybody's clear on how we spend our money, is we'll just work with each category at a time. And our first category would be administration. And I'm not going to hit each individual item. Are there any questions or comments about anything in the administration category or thoughts?
I will ask one question.
Yes.
Okay, under office supplies, I'm assuming that covers every individual area of the church.
That would cover anything that is not paid for by somebody else. Yeah. So if Welka has office supplies that they're buying themselves or reimbursing for, that would not have been in here. But typically, yeah, any what it costs for anything, paper, yeah, and sometimes it either has lack of where else to put this, it may end up in office supplies because it fits there. A third of the A1, A2, A4, and A5 are paid for by Springfield. Okay, 33% of that. So that does include supplies for bulletins and that Springfield receives. So they do reimburse us for that back. The actual number kind of varies a little bit for various reasons, like maybe something got categorized in there that shouldn't have been in there. But that is balanced at the end of the year every year. So that's where that's on column A9 is what $1,789 was reimbursed last year. Again, budget for next year is just a third of what's expected. So, all right, church staff. This is everything but pastoral ministry. Church secretary, custodians. We did give a raise to Donna this year. I believe it went to $14 an hour. Some people think that may be a little high, but no, it's not when you compare out there to a lot. When you hire somebody without benefits. And with that said, we've been budgeting $12,000 a year every year for that secretary of staff, and she never gets those hours in. She's efficient. She does a good job. You can see what it actually cost us last year. So even though we have increased her hourly rate, I doubt we didn't really need to increase probably much the budget for that area. When we hired her compared to what she is now, she was not familiar with computers, not familiar with software. She is a much better employee now than she was first hired. So with that, she also deserved a raise. So that's where that one is at, why we're not going with 10.5 actual. We're going because of the increased raise there. We kept custodial and maintenance the same. We felt those were good enough salaries for the people working there. They are salaried positions. Both those, they do not turn in hours. They're just expected to get their jobs done there on those. Organist, we kept the organist the same, right, Council? We did not increase the amount for the organist. So we're at about budget there. We pay our organists. We have a couple really good organists, 3 with our backup with Tony there. And we pay as well or better than many of the congregations around us. But that's important to us because particularly as we have an expensive pipe code, we have our good people running it. We do have a financial secretary and treasurer. And you'll notice the budget is there, but the position costs nothing. Judy Cook is our financial secretary. She essentially collects the money and keeps track of who donated what. She puts your statements together at the end of the year. Treasurer is Deidre. Deidre Kuhn. She does all the check writing, balancing the money every month and all that. They do not accept pay for the positions. Most churches, those are paid positions. We leave it in the budget because Deidre has requested that somebody else take the treasurer's position. Okay. Nobody stepped up yet. But we want that in there because we don't want, if somebody decides they do want to take the position, we want them to understand it is a paid position for taking. So if somebody does come in and says, okay, yeah, we'll do that for you, Deidre, it is a paid position. And then if after they take it, they choose not to take finance. That's their choice. But we don't expect anybody to volunteer to do those things. So we do appreciate, and our thanks goes out to both those individuals for what they do for our congregation. We do have their youth director. We're still hoping to hire a youth director sometime. We've had a little bit of interest, but nobody has been serious about that. So that is still in the budget there to have a youth director this coming year. The rest of that is pretty much straightforward calculations and information. And some of that is obviously reimbursed by Springfield at 33%, which is our agreement with that. Any questions there? Pastoral ministry, that was voted on at the joint council meeting in the fall to give pastor a $1,150 raise. That was a recommendation from the synod, and the joint council, since that is a joint decision that needs to be made, voted for that versus that being voted on the annual meeting. And again, we pay 67% of that. Springfield pays 33% of that. The Social Security offset, what that is, some people are confused about that. Pastors, we are not allowed to pay pastors Social Security. I don't know why the law is that way. Separation of church and state, I guess, or something along that. So he has to pay both sides. He pays 15 point some percent Social Security out of his paycheck. So we give him a little extra to offset our side of that. So we don't pay Social Security directly, we pay Pastor, and then he pays both sides of that Social Security when he puts his taxes in. Mileage, you notice it was $590 is all he turned in for mileage this last year. The council's kind of got upset about Pastor this last year because he was not turning in mileage. He said, turn it in and we'll pay you the going rate for mileage, and he never turned it in. So what the council's voted is to give him just a flat fee each month for his travel time. And that's where that budget is. So he'll get a check of $100 a month, and we've already started doing that. That way he doesn't have to keep track. We know he's putting in the time, putting in the miles. So that's where that one will come from, and will be $1,200 next year. I don't think there's much else there that needs explanation. The moving expense, that's being set aside in the fund for a future pastor, essentially. I believe is my understanding with that. We did not budget for it for this year. We had that expense from last year. We decided not to budget for that year because we don't think pastor's moving this year or next year. Once he starts giving an indication he's not going to be with us anymore, we have to consider that. We plan on being here for another 30 years, so. As long as Chuck Grassley's in office, he'll be here, so. Yeah, never mind. Okay, anything on pastoral ministry there? Fellowship, just again, part of our expense of running a congregation. So essentially, devotional materials or special materials for devotion. I think the monthly or the quarterly pamphlet comes out that some people pick up is out of that. Special events, if we decide to have something, we want to cater a meal or something, that's what that's in there for. We didn't do anything in 21 for that. And the assembly gift, we did not give an assembly gift last year, but it's in the budget for next year. Essentially, when they have the assembly, they ask every congregation to donate to support the assembly. I think we paid $40 per person or something like that for our virtual assembly. We felt that was enough, and they didn't have any expense for facilities or anything. Youth and ministry, we don't budget for Bible camp scholarships or for sponsoring a mission trip. Currently, we didn't budget last year. We didn't spend any money on that last year. We chose to keep those line items in there just because they have been in there historically, and we just budgeted $1,000 from the congregation's giving to support the youth for some type of ministry activities. How that is utilized will be up to the council and or a youth committee if a youth committee is established. So as you look at these different items, within that budgeted item, the council has to say so how the money is spent. So if you're wanting out that $1,000, the council will make that call. What you're doing is giving the council permission to spend $1,000 on youth. And when you do that in the budget and approve the budget. All right? Worship and music on the next page. Worship supplies. And again, a lot of different things can fall into there. Part of that is the pamphlet that has readings on it each month. Some of it is, I believe, our Sundays and Season licenses in that. That's where we print out all our electronic material from. So you can see what we spent on that. We kept the same budget as last year, assuming that there could be an increased cost there. Instrument tuning and repair. Our organ is in really good shape now. So there's only $100 spent this last year because obviously when it was updated, a lot of the things that were needed to be done were done at that time. Came out of a special donation and special fund that was established for that. I think we have $100 that went into tuning the piano, and it only is tuned once this year. Normally they like to tune it twice a year, but this year we did it once. Any questions there? Same thing with learning. Pretty straightforward there as we look at those. Vacation Bible School, we didn't spend money on Vacation Bible School. It was all donated. But we have a budget in there in case they do need money for Vacation Bible School. Property, there's where we had a lot of discussion in council. Went back and forth on this over a couple different meetings, and would appreciate any input if you have it. The insurance, right now our bill is $1,476.50 each quarter. We don't expect that to change during the coming year, so we just multiplied that times 4. It doesn't mean it wouldn't, but at this point it doesn't look like it will. That should be what it should be. Snow removal, there was no snow removal last year. There will be this year. The person, who was the person who was normally doing it? Al Brockmeyer, thank you. Al Brockmeyer has always done our snow removal. Al Brockmeyer has retired and sold his business. His going rate was $1.30 a minute, and he donated that all to us. He gave us statements of what it would have been if he had charged us, but he donated it to us. The new person who bought the business said, I can't donate it, but I could do it for $1 a minute versus $1.30 I'm going to charge everybody else. Luther Anderson checked around and found out of Green Lawn, out of Ashen. The person running that operation said they would do our parking lots for $75 per time. We felt that was, when we're looking at Al's time that he put in when he had submitted bills, that was less than what we would pay. So that's currently what we're doing. Since we have no history, what that $75 would amount to, obviously that varies by year, we decided to budget across the same amount there. So that's kind of an explanation there. It seems like $1,800 is a lot of dollars, but I'd rather have too much budgeted in there than to come up short. And then decide where that fund's going to have to come from. Lawn mowing, that's a $950. How do we do that? Essentially, the cemetery committee does the mowing of the lawn for the congregation. So they obviously mow their lawn out of their funds in the back, but then also, while they're doing that, they mow our lawn, and they charge us a flat fee of $950 to do that. So we just write them a $950 check each year for doing that, and they don't keep track of hours or anything. It's an arrangement that has worked out very well. Electricity, fuel, sewer, same thing on parsonage. We try to look at last year. We try to look at our even pay and work on that, particularly on the parsonage. We only were occupied 11 out of 12 months last year in the parsonage. Last year, the church was not used as much as it's being used now, the first half of the year. So there's where we kind of came up with our numbers, kind of looked at our even pay or what was going out there, multiplied that out, and then budgeted a little bit more because everybody knows natural gas prices have been going up. Any thoughts on those amounts? Are you comfortable with those amounts? Okay. If there's no questions or comments, we did work on that. We got to where we were comfortable, but again, it's an unknown as we look at things forward. So that's total property expenses there. As far as the parsonage, we do get reimbursed for part of those expenses there from Springfield. Emergency maintenance, we decided to leave that out of the budget. We won't see anything at this point that should be part of that budget that we ourselves would not be responsible for, because anything in there would be shared by Springfield. What we do with Springfield, though, is they give us the rental value reimbursed at a couple $100 a month, I believe. Well, basically, yeah, $1,500 last year they reimbursed us for parsonage. That goes into a special fund for the parsonage. And we leave that money in that fund in case we need to do some improvements or anything on the parsonage. I'm not sure what the balance is there right now. That would be on another report. Any questions or comments on property then? Last thing is benevolence. What was decided several years ago is that we should take 6% of our offering, and that should go to benevolence. So once a quarter, Dieter looks at the offerings from the past 3 months, takes 6% of that, and that total dollar amount is divided according to the percentages you see there on K1 through K8 each quarter. In the budget, it's 6% of the budget, but budget doesn't also always agree with offerings. Sometimes we have funds come in from other directions. So that's why sometimes that doesn't actually work out as percentages down below as you would see it in the budget end. With that, we did make one change in this budget from what it was last year to make you aware of that. Missionary support. That used to be the Messiah Foundation missionary support. Council decided to remove the Messiah Foundation designation from that. Instead, just budget 6% for missionary support and case there is a time we feel there is a better missionary place that our offerings should go to. That, again, is a council decision if the budget is approved as it's written here. That doesn't mean we will abandon the Messiah Foundation, but that does mean we may not take your offerings and go to that. It may go to a different area. There has been, I know, a request from a certain missionary group to come and speak to our church about one of the works they do, and maybe say, okay, yeah, I mean, you're reaching out to us, we'll reach out to you. So we want that flexibility in the budget rather than being tied to one group, and that's why the council is making this recommendation. We can change those percentages, and notice as it breaks down, it is 100% total. As we look at questions, comments on our benevolence. Anybody wish to say anything there or make any suggestions? Okay. Total budget for the year, you'll notice, is $113,214. That is exactly the same amount we budgeted last year. We actually spent $23,000 less than we budgeted last year, which is good. Obviously, that's a good news. The council always is very conscious about how the money is spent because it's your offerings. With that said, our offerings did cover everything. We had $99,000 in offerings this last year, which is good. It means we were able to rebuild our savings account for when we do have times that are short. What that does tell you, though, is for the coming year, with what we're budgeting here, we're going to be $13,000 short compared to our offerings if we get the same offerings next year. So the message is, I'm not worried about it. If anybody's ever asked me about that before, I've never been in a congregation yet that didn't meet their financial needs. But that doesn't mean because we made $9,000 extra last year that we're in really good financial shape. We're always conscious of where we need to go and what we're spending. So, if there are no other questions on the budget, oops, to the next page. Well, there's our treasurer. That's all, yeah. No, we don't need any payment. No, those are the 2 pages we need to look at. Yeah, the next 2 pages, I'm not sure. Same thing, essentially. Is what? Oh, is it? Oh, okay. So, just went through pages 22 and 23. That's the one we'll address right now. I need a motion to approve the budget. Do we have a motion? Okay, Lana moved to approve the budget. Is there a second? Okay, all over the place. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Okay, motion approved as presented. Ballot, do we have the results? You want to come up front, or I can repeat what you have? Oh, you come up front, Sharon. Okay, so Jim was written in on the cemetery committee, so, all right. So Cheryl and Vicky will be our DQ. Okay, and the rest were basically as is. Okay, so the ballot is approved. That was a ballot vote by hand. We don't need to have anything else there. Last thing is meeting date for annual meeting. It's always on the agenda. I would assume we will go again with the last Sunday in January. Do I have a motion to that effect? It's been moved that we have last Sunday in January 23, excuse me. Is there a second? Second? All those in favor say aye. Pastor, would you like to close us with the Lord's Prayer?
So we bow our heads and pray as our Lord and Savior taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you. Spotlight to that. What, one note?
Yeah, that we've done this before at the meeting, before we ate, didn't work well. I suppose maybe next year we could eat and maybe schedule a meeting like in the fellowship hall at like 12:15 or 12:30 and we could actually sit down.
New council members, you heard they suggest that we have the potluck before the meeting next year. That'll be decided by the council.
People are eating